Hi, welcome to CAD 107. I'm Joe Cerrone,
I'm Al Rosen.
and we're just going to go through the assignments. We just released Lab 2, which is this sign for 3D printing. And the objectives are to model the sign using CAD. You can use either AutoCAD or SolidWorks. And then to export the 3D model as an STL. And essentially this week, we're going to focus on CAD. Before we go and introduce another new topic like slicing, we're going to stay with the CAD aspect of it because we want to make sure that everybody gets off the ground before we add more content. There's two videos. This video right here is the SolidWorks, and this one here is the AutoCAD. So if you click on it.
Hey, Joe. Go in your scale and scale this up 100%, please.
So with this video right here, let me just increase this. There we go. I've turned off the sound, but essentially we go through these different labs and how to model them. And so here's the how to model it with AutoCAD. And we're finding a lot of people have CAD skills. And so if you don't have CAD, if you haven't done CAD, like some of the students, you can set up a meeting and Al and I will walk you through how to do this. And so essentially we go through how to do this with AutoCAD. Text is a little bit different with AutoCAD. You have to explode the text using the bonus tools so that you can then convert it to vector-based geometry. So then you can extrude it. So we go through here, we select it, then we extrude it, extrude that. So that's the how to do that with AutoCAD video. I'm going to hit escape and I'm going to come back here. I'm going to pause this. Oops. As long as we're looking at videos, we can take a look at the first video or from project 1 too. So let me get to that next. So if we come back here, so there's two videos. This is the first video, how to draw this with AutoCAD, and then the second video, how to draw this with SolidWorks. It took me roughly the same amount of time when I went through and did them. And so you can kind of see the technique is very similar, but yet the interfaces are different. And so as we work with the 3D printing class, we've decided to make these in either AutoCAD or SolidWorks. And so we go through how to put the text in, how to model that, and then how to export that as an STL file. So you want to do those two labs and put them in the Dropbox. If we backtrack a little bit to last week, we did a video on how to export the gears for 3D printing. And essentially, if we go to lab 1, we can export either of these. And these were both done with AutoCAD, just from a standpoint of how the course was started. So modeling with AutoCAD, you have these, they're just basically shapes that are extruded, and then we'll save that out. It's really very similar to the other drawing. So if we were to go and look at this Lab 1A drawing file and we download it, and then we open it, and I'm sorry, I've got to switch over to a student view so that we get the right one here. Okay, so here's Lab 1A, and then there's 1B. And so if we go here and we download it, and then we open it, we just draw these basic shapes. It's supposed to be really relatively easy. I'm going to switch over my interface to drafting and annotation. And I'll draw a circle. And then I'll draw a rectangle. And we can draw an ellipse. And then if I go to the second tab, we can use the Express tools to explode those. And so this might be a little bit to a point where you have to edit the name. So you could come in here and you could edit it, and you could put, we'll say Al Rosen. You double click on those. And we'll say, we'll give you the instructor badge.
All right.
All right. You're welcome to add, some other, information to that if you need to. And then the important part here with these is that you go to the Express tools. And so if we go to the third page here, it says use Express tools to explode them. And so again, you need to show the menu bar, go to Express, text, explode text. And then if you explode these text, it's not working, so I'm going to see why. There it goes. I had to double click in the viewport, Express, text, explode text. And so we can go here, here. We'll just do those two. And you can see there was this kind of a change, it kind of flipped. And so what it does is it turns them into vector-based geometry instead of letters. And then we go to the next tab, and then we can use extrude or press pull. I'm having some difficulty with press pull. My computer has crashed a couple times, so I'm going to stick with extrude. You can just type in extrude, or you can switch the interface over to 3D Basics. And you can get extrude and click on this part right here. If it doesn't, double click in the viewport till it highlights red, and then go extrude, click on it, and we'll go down, let's say 2, whoops, too much, 2 inches. This one's in inches. So we'll say extrude, we'll click on that, and we'll go down 0.2. And then if I come back here and I want to extrude these up, we can say extrude, put a little box around these letters, hit enter. Then we can go up and we'll say, we'll go up 0.125.
Or down, either way you want to do it.
Yeah, if you go down, it'll create a relief on there. And so if we do that with this one here where we extrude it, we go down 0.2, and then we say extrude, and we select these, hit enter, and we go down. We could say go down 0.125. Now the difference is that we would need to subtract those now from the shape to be able to see them. And so what we would do is we'd say subtract. We'd select the large piece, hit enter, and then put a box around this text and hit enter. And that'll subtract out those shapes. And so you're welcome to do any slight modifications to that if you want to. You can add chamfers and fillets, etc. But that's essentially all we want here. You can save this, save as, and save it as your initials, lab 1. And then we can export these for 3D printing. Before we export this one, we have to union it, which means it's going to join the letters. And then we can export by hitting the big red A. And we can say export, other formats. And so we'll do this as tag 1. And we'll just click on that. And then we'll do that again. By hitting the space bar, it'll repeat the last command. And then we'll export this one as tag 2.
Just make sure your STL file saved.
Right, exactly. And so once we've done that, essentially we can go into the 3D printing aspect of it. And so lab number 2 with the gears is really very similar. There's a video set up for that. It works the same way. If we were to go through and look at the next step, what we would do is we go to the Dremel software.
Make sure you download it, ladies and gentlemen. Also, by the way, once you finish one project for lab, make sure you turn it in so I can grade it and hand it back to you.
Always a good idea to turn in the work. And then this is what the build area looks like in the palette for the Dremel 3D 45. Now, when we bring in some of the AutoCAD files, we're going to have to convert them to millimeters, which means we'll have to scale them up by 25.4 times. And so you'll see when we open up some of these files, here's tag 1, it's going to be really small. And so there it is. It's this tiny print. And so we'll scale that, and we put in 2540 here. And then we can bring in the other tag, say open it, tag 2. Again, we'll need to scale that. And we'll need to move that so that they don't touch. Whoops. Move it. We can move this one. And that's basically how we're going to go through and set this. We'll work with students next week to show you how we'll slice and print it. Just a quick rundown, because I do have my networking working on this today. What we would do is we would set the material, PLA, and then the quality level. We'll leave these as default for right now, and then what we'll do is we'd say prepare. And essentially what that does is it prepares it to be printed, and it does something called slicing it. And so if we look at the layers, we can then come in here and we can see how this is going to be built. It's going to be a 38 layer project. Not sure why we have support material on this one. Probably because I have it enabled. So let me disable that. And then I'll reslice it. There we go. And so it's still 38 layers, but as we go through the layers, we can then see how the build is going to be made. And we'll go through things like the infill type. That's what this pattern is here. We can change those things. We'll work with how we can set up the thicknesses of these red lines or these perimeters. So it has sort of a tough shell on the outside. There's a lot of small details to it. But essentially, once we have this set up, we can print it. And so we can go over here to the build area, and then we can take a look at our part. I can put in a new one. Bear with me for one more minute. I got to get some glue on this, on the palette. And then what we can do is we can come back here, say print over network. Now, usually I print it to a USB so that I don't tie up my computer, but we'll do it over the network for this purposes. Print over network. And then what it'll do is it'll start running the 3D printer. And it'll start off by calibrating the height of the printer head to the pallet. So it'll come up here and touch the probe.
Also, sometimes if you have too much space between one part and another part, you can close the gap together, and it takes a little less time to run.
Yeah, there's all kinds of tips and tricks as we go through, and essentially everybody wants their prints printed faster. Nobody wants to wait an hour and 23 minutes for this part. So we can find different ways to kind of shortcut those things, whether it's a wider infill or more sparse. But it really depends on what you're going to use the part for. And so stronger parts require higher tolerance builds. And so I would recommend that as we go through. And so it's going to go through and calibrate the palette, and then it's going to go and start 3D printing. We'll come back to this. We'll take a look back here at the D2L. And so lab one, okay, and I've created this video and I'll post it. We showed how to do the tags. And then lab 1B is pretty much the same sort of a thing where we can go to lab 1B, can download it, and then we can open that. And this is going to be a gear assembly. And what we can do is, again, I've switched over to the 3D workspace. Okay, and so you hit this little gear here, 3D basics. And then what we're going to do is we're going to extrude these. You can use press pull if you want, but my computer has been having some issues with press pull. It crashed a couple times, so I'm just going to stay with extrude. So I'll say extrude, and I can select. Now, before I select this shape here, let's try press pull on this one. I think press pull will work. Yeah. So I can press pull this one down, and we'll go down 0.25. And then we'll press pull this. And so this was the problem I was having. Sometimes it's hard to get it in the right spot to press pull it, to get it to light everything up. So I'm going to extrude this one. So if I say extrude, I click on this, 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 and this, and this, we can extrude this up, and we'll say 0.25. If you shade it, you can kind of see that the other features haven't been subtracted. So we'll subtract those. Say subtract, click on the larger shape, hit enter, and then we'll subtract out those 3 plus this. And then we can move it just to show that it's all one piece. It does leave the ghost of the image before it. And then again, we can save this as our name, file, save as. And so change this to your initials. I did revise it because some of the CAD geometry was a little difficult to work with.
Make sure you submit it for grading, please.
So you'll save it as a CAD file. And then you'll export it as an STL. So we'll say export, other formats, and this will export it as an STL. While that's, and then you'll take those files and you'll put them into the Dropbox. Excuse me 1 second here. And then we'll be able to bring those into the slicer. And so back to D2L, you'll go to the assignments tab. And here's lab 1. Lab 1 is due September 15th. So that'll be due next week on Tuesday evening. If you're having some difficulty, just email Al and I and we'll help you get the first one started. We'll help you with as many as you need. And then we'll go into lab 2. So you'll submit those into the Dropbox and then we'll take those out of the Dropbox and print those. One other thing that under quizzes and exams, there is a chapter 1 review questions. And so you'll want to go through and you want to answer the chapter 1 review questions. Essentially, they're just the questions from the end of the chapter on introduction to 3D printing and prototyping the textbook. If we want to go back and take a look at our slicing software, we can kind of see. Let's go back here to build and prepare and build. And at this time, it's not printing yet. It's got a couple more seconds before it hits the temperature level on the preheating for the nozzle, but it should take just a few more seconds here. And what's really neat too about the Dremel 3D printers is that they are cloud-based, meaning you can print from your house to these 3D printers once we get them set up.
There we go.
They all have cameras in them nowadays, so you can see how the build is going. The first layer is important because the first layer has the adhesion to the palette. And if it doesn't adhere the first couple of layers, then it's going to come off and you're going to have a big spool of spaghetti on the print. And so as we look at it, what it's doing is it's putting down a base. I'm printing this with a silver or gray colored PLA. And we can come back to this in an hour and we'll have our part. It'll be all set. Switching back to D2L, CAD-107. Okay, so that's a review. As I said in the video, Lab 2, CAD-based. You can do it with AutoCAD. And here's a video on how to do the Do Not Disturb sign with AutoCAD. Here's a video on how to do that with SolidWorks. We'll hold these meetings every Wednesday at 4 p.m. And then here's a video which I just showed how to do the extruding for the gears. You'll extrude those, save them, and then put them into the assignments bin for Lab 1. And you'll do the same for Lab 2. And then if you're one of those people who's like, hey, this is working great, what else can I do? Go through and take a look at the textbook for the 3D projects, the 20 3D projects. We're essentially going to be going through and working those projects. And we're trying to choose projects that are easier to do at the beginning. And so we picked Project 11 because it's not a real intense drawing. And so we'll be posting those in the content area as we go through. So I'm going to end the video. Before I do, Al, do you have any other comments before I end this?
No, well, that was real great. Hope everybody was understood what we were going for. If there's any questions, there's time to ask, please, or after the video. Making sure that we have all your stuff in the assignment Dropbox area. If any other question right now.
Right, and so if you do have any questions, email us. I know Mike came out to the campus yesterday. We can't allow students, if they have an appointment, I believe, that we can work with you. So if you need any assistance, just send us an email. With that, I'm going to end this, this video, and then we'll open it up for questions.